Last time, the Android saga kicked off in force. However, Jiro survived 17 and 18 being activated by staying out of their way. He found out about Cell thanks to Krillin and Trunks, and when we left off he'd managed to slip away from the Saiyans, aiming to assist his creation in attaining completion. There was only one issue. The old man didn't actually know where Cell was, and he couldn't sense energy. But he also couldn't be sensed. Eventually, he'd decide to head to Kame House. It was his best idea for the moment. He'd stay out of sight and listen in on any conversations, see if they knew anything. He wouldn't have to wait too long, however, as he would arrive just as Krillin headed off to find Bulma. He'd seen Tien leave as well. Apparently Piccolo was fighting Android 17. Now, if Cell was smart, and of course he was because he'd made him, then he'd use Piccolo's energy to find the androids. So if he followed Tien, he'd eventually find Cell. He considered stealing more energy from Yamcha, but thought better of it. If Goku or one of the others sensed Yamcha's energy fading, they'd be able to find him. So he'd just take off after Tien, flying above the Triclops to try and remain out of sight. The fight between Piccolo and 17 goes as usual. They're even, more or less, but 17 has the edge due to his infinite stamina. Then Cell shows up and 16 tries to protect 17 and 18, but ultimately Cell still manages to absorb 17. Before he can pursue 18, Cell's attention is taken by Tien, who forces him into the ground with a Neo Tri-Beam. He goes to fire again, but Jiro throws himself in front of his creation, palms outstretched, absorbing the energy from the attack. "Oh, don't mind me, please, continue." Tien would grit his teeth, knowing he can't try any energy attacks against him. To that end, he would attempt the Four Witches technique, growing 2 extra arms and rushing Jiro. Initially, he would take Dr. Jiro off guard with the technique, but it didn't last long due to the huge power difference. Eventually, Android 20 would grab Tien by the throat, absorbing his remaining energy before tossing him to the side. "Why, thank you, Doctor!" Cell greeted his creator before looking over to where 18 and 16 had been. They were gone, but no matter, they couldn't have gotten far. Just as Jiro prepared to finish Tien, Goku would show up, grabbing Tien and then Piccolo. "You're a fool, Goku! Cell, destroy him!" Cell seemed more intrigued by this teleportation technique Goku seemed to be able to do. Eventually he'd listen to his creator, but just as Cell moved to attack him, Goku vanished back to the lookout. "How could you let him go, you idiot? You should have killed him!" Jiro scolded before Cell shot him a look. "I do not like being called an idiot." Of course, I'm sorry." Jiro backed up a little. "But it's just, he has a place where he can get a year's worth of training in one day. He may well wind up stronger than you." "Then I will enjoy the challenge when the time comes. Question me again and I will destroy you. Now make yourself useful and help me find 18. "Of course, that's why I came to begin with." Another creation who didn't listen to him. That was just great. Jiro would sigh before taking off after Cell. Hopefully they'd find 18 before long, and hopefully Goku wouldn't be able to surpass Perfect Cell even with a year of training. Not long after this, Krillin meets up with Bulma, who gives him the remote that can shut down Android 18. As Tien and Piccolo recover on the lookout, Vegeta and Trunks exit the time chamber. Tarble could immediately tell they were on a whole new level now. If they were this strong in base form, they should be able to beat Cell as Super Saiyans. Their clothes were torn to shreds, but thankfully Bulma would show up with a solution in the form of battle armor. Once they were changed, the pair would turn to leave, though Vegeta spared a moment, placing a hand on Tarble's shoulder. "You'll never catch up." Vegeta spoke in a low tone so only Tarble would hear. Of course Piccolo heard as well, since he had good hearing. Goku gives Trunks 2 senzu beans before waving them off. Afterwards, Goku and Gohan take their turn in the time chamber. Since Cell is aware that Goku could have a year of training before he sees him next, he's more cautious. He's not destroying islands thoughtlessly. Instead, he would have Jiro search the island quickly before destroying it. When Vegeta does show up, there are several more islands left. "Continue searching for 18. This won't take long." Cell was confident he could beat Vegeta, but he would quickly realize he was wrong when the fight began. Jiro had been right about the training for a year and a day. Dr. Jiro would attempt to sneak away from the fight to try and find 18. At the same time, Krillin would arrive. Jiro simply decided to follow the monk. He'd let him find 18 for him before alerting Cell, although he hadn't noticed the remote yet. Since it would take them a little longer to find 18, Cell would convince Vegeta to let him look before Krillin had destroyed the remote. Eventually, Krillin would find the androids as in the original. He didn't want to destroy 18, she hadn't done anything wrong yet, she didn't really deserve to die, but here was Vegeta trying to let Cell absorb her. "Get away from here!" Krillin tried to tell her to run, since Cell hadn't spotted her yet. "I will, but you come with me." 18 recognized the remote. "I don't want to live, if it's as part of that thing. But if he gets me, I need you to promise me you'll press that button." Krillin solemnly nodded. He would do his best to keep that promise. Before they had a chance to leave, however, Jiro would snatch the remote from Krillin before firing a photon wave into the air, alerting Cell of their location. Vegeta's good-for-nothing pride is about to get you all in a lot of trouble. Krillin would attempt to take the remote from Jiro, who simply grabbed him with his other hand. As it happens, I could use more energy. Android 18 knew it would be the smarter decision to run, but she couldn't just let Krillin die. She'd launch forward and punch Jiro across the face, causing him to drop Krillin. As she made a grab for the remote, however, he crushed it in his hand. Looks like you're out of options. You have no choice but to be absorbed. Trunks would decide to step in, rushing forward and kicking Cell, sending him into the dirt. Their efforts would ultimately be in vain, however, as Cell would use the solar flare, blinding everyone and giving him the opportunity to absorb 18. Vegeta smirked as he watched Cell transform. Maybe now he'd get a challenge. And a challenge he would get. The newly transformed Cell was toying with Vegeta, easily outmatching the prince, and agreeing to take the final flash head-on despite Jiro's protests. At the last second, Cell would listen and go to dodge the attack, but he was still injured by the move. Once he'd grown his arm back, however, he would easily defeat Vegeta. Before he can finish the prince, Trunks steps up to challenge Cell. Once Krillin had taken Vegeta to safety, Trunks would power up to Super Saiyan 3rd grade before starting his fight with Cell. The fight between Trunks and Cell goes as usual. Cell toys with Trunks, allowing him to believe he has the advantage. Jiro and 16 both seemed fooled by Cell letting Trunks win. When Cell grew bored of Trunks, he would finally decide to strike back, using his superior speed to take control of the battle. That little trick isn't going to cut it. You're stronger, sure, but you're also a lot slower. Jiro there could probably dodge your attacks at this rate. Trunks would attempt to hit Cell a few more times before giving up, conceding that he'd lost the fight. Cell would still come up with the idea of the Cell game, since he was curious just how strong they could end up if he gave them a little time to prepare. If they couldn't beat him though, he'd destroy the planet. Destroy the planet? No, I never programmed you for that. You're simply supposed to get revenge against Goku and his allies. I've outgrown your meager purpose, creator, but more than that. I've outgrown you. Cell would hold out a hand, smiling before destroying Jiro with one blast. See that? That's a little preview of what I'll do to this planet if none of you can stop me. Without another word, Cell would leave, off to make his announcement of the Cell games to the world, while the others regrouped at the lookout. Shortly after the announcement, Goku and Gohan would exit the time chamber, both far stronger than they were before, which meant it was finally time for Tarble's turn. I'll go with you. Piccolo would volunteer, walking past Tarble. Things outside proceed as normal, so instead we'll focus on what happens inside the chamber. The first order of business is getting you to become a Super Saiyan. False Super Saiyan isn't gonna cut it. If I'm gonna make any progress in here, I'll need a less breakable partner. I understand, but I wasn't able to transform in 3 years. What makes you think I can do it in 1? Well, if you don't, you're likely gonna die in here. Piccolo's tone made it hard to tell if he was serious or not. That aside, you're more than strong enough, so I think the problem must be mental. I'm just guessing here, but I think it might help if you talk me through how you were feeling when you first transformed into a false Super Saiyan. Frieza had killed Vegeta, and I was angry, but I was also conflicted. He's family, so of course I care about him, but I feel like I didn't really deserve it. What right did I have to be upset by his death? Why should I care? He's killed millions. It isn't like he ever cared about me. If the roles were reversed and Frieza had killed me, he wouldn't have cared. He would have just called me a weak excuse for a Saiyan and moved on. Sounds to me like you need to sort out your conflicted feelings about your brother before you can make any real progress. Piccolo would step outside into the void, taking a deep breath. We can train as we talk. Attack me with all you've got. Tarble would do as he was told, powering up to full Super Saiyan and attempting to kick Piccolo, who easily caught his leg before knocking him to the ground with one punch. So if you don't care, just disown him. Goku doesn't consider Raditz his brother. Piccolo fired a volley of energy blasts towards Tarble, who just about managed to dodge them, though Piccolo wasn't really giving it his best. It's not that simple. Goku didn't know Raditz most of his life. I've known my brother as long as I can remember. That's worse. Goku knew Raditz for what, an hour? And he knew he hated him. You've had all this time and you still don't know how you feel. Piccolo mocked Tarble, admittedly trying to make him angry and trigger a transformation. Tarble, who seemed to be taking the bait, would try to punch Piccolo in the stomach. Piccolo took the hit, but was completely unharmed, knocking Tarble unconscious with a headbutt. They would continue on like this for weeks, talking while sparring until inevitably Tarble lost, but he was getting better gradually, through Zenkais as he was recovering from the losses as well as developing new techniques, one of which was an energy barrier since he's always been more of a defensive fighter. But even with all that, he was still no Super Saiyan. Do you hate your brother? Piccolo demanded an answer from Tarble before grabbing him by the waist and slamming him into the ground. No, I mean, I did, but he's improved, sort of. Vegeta wasn't as bad as he used to be, sure, but he was hardly a good person. Then if you don't hate him, why are you so conflicted? Piccolo took off upwards, beginning to charge an explosive demon wave. Fine, maybe I hate him, but I don't honestly think he deserves that. He's trying to do better. Tarble would create a barrier around himself with his energy to block the attack. Just make up your goddamn mind already! Piccolo would fire the attack at Tarble, and the barrier seemed to be holding up for the moment, until it began to crack. Tarble was focused on keeping the barrier up, as well as sorting out how he felt about his brother, coming to a realization. Vegeta being family didn't mean he was entitled to Tarble caring about him, but at the same time he had been trying to do better as of recently, so it wasn't really fair to hate him either, but that didn't mean Tarble was wrong for being mad at him. So no, he didn't hate Vegeta, he was just angry with him. Angry about how he acted so superior, angry that Vegeta was so obsessed with his pride. Heck, they were only in this situation to begin with because Vegeta wanted to stroke his ego. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, and then he finally managed it. Tarble's barrier broke just as he transformed, but the blast was blown backwards by the energy of the transformation. So, you finally did it. Piccolo would smirk as the smoke cleared, revealing Tarble with golden hair and blue eyes. Piccolo would remove his weighted clothing, dropping it to the ground. Now the real training can begin. And that's where we'll leave things for now. So, Tarble is mad at his brother, and really, Vegeta deserves it. Will the two brothers ever see eye to eye? How will things go during the Cell games? Find out next time, and leave a comment to let me know what you think of this so far. If you like this video, maybe leave a like or even subscribe, but that's completely optional. Alright, have a good day.